The early 1980s. I was there. I saw it. An excruciating era in America when everything was brown. After the overindulgence of colors in the 1960s, extravagant pigments were still being rationed. All that was left was a sort of russet corduroy hue that permeated most of the 70s and 80s. The only time we saw other colors was on TV commercials, where they just put all of them on the screen at the same time. I remember we used to huddle around monolithic television sets made out of oak trees and Tesla coils. I remember we used to sit in our brown rooms, eating our brown snacks, watching our brown televisions, banefully clattering our tiny knuckles against the thick glass facade as we watched every color that never belonged together, playing electric guitar on a surfboard just to advertise a fistful of brown fructose corn syrup. Tonight's story takes place in the darkest depths of the 1980s, a time when it was considered completely appropriate to send a child alone into a stranger's home to sell them plastic tat out of a cardboard suitcase. Something I myself had to do. So is this story autobiographical? Let's find out. It is. They all are. The wheels on the little red wagon rolled down the sidewalk, begrudgingly pulled by a Cub Scout named Owen Nosen. Owen did almost everything begrudgingly. He joined the Cub Scouts begrudgingly. He was put on a diet begrudgingly. Owen didn't want to do any of these things. His father owned Brock's Gymnasium, the only successful independent workout facility in town. His mother was a former local beauty pageant queen who worked the finances for her husband's gym. Together they pursued the American dream and honed their business until they were successful enough to buy their first home. They moved into a simple quarter-acre ranch house in the picturesque suburb of West Wasn't, Indiana. 10 years ago, they excitedly welcomed their first child. With the combined might of their superior physiques, they anticipated the creation of the most beautiful child imaginable.
Instead, they got Owen.
And he knows his parents don't like him, but then they don't like each other either. 4 years ago, his mom abruptly left, flew off to Poughkeepsie with an executive from Ma Bell. She's raising his kids now, while her ex is stuck raising Owen.
Begrudgingly.
Fully aware of this, the boy would rebel against his resentful parent, but only in the smallest of ways. He grew his hair long and watched weird movies. His father didn't mind the sci-fi, although he discouraged the horror films. But Owen would record them off cable. He was the only one that knew how to work the VCR. He needed a respite from all the inane activities he had agreed to try. And now his whole summer was being consumed by the Scouts. But of all the absurd things he's had to put up with in this troop, nothing compared to the burden he was dragging behind him at this very moment. Never had he dealt with anything more demeaning than the Knute gray suitcase of opportunities. First of all, it wasn't a proper suitcase. It was made entirely out of cardboard. Disguising the dull brown packaging was a bright sticker veneer made to look like wicker. This harkened back to a bygone era
The day of the traveling salesman, going door to door selling brushes out of a rattan case to impressionable housewives across the country. And that's exactly what the Knute Grace fundraising company was attempting to resurrect. Not through scary, untrustworthy men, but through the innocence of children. The Suitcase of Opportunities was only available for fundraising drives. It was ideally suited to the Scouts. Each cub was expected to go door to door, all alone, selling their wares out of their prepackaged cardboard dream factory. It was thought to be a positive learning experience for the children. They were getting to know their neighbors, and they were learning how to sell useless products which would prepare them for adulthood. So off he went, down the sidewalk of his own street, meeting the very people he had spent his short life avoiding, his own neighbors. The box contained exactly 24 different items of pristine American merchandise, all of them made in China. A cornucopia of synthetic tattery, bundled into a faux wicker suitcase and brought to your home by uniformed child soldiers, unwittingly fighting the invisible war against communism. Owen's stomach was tied in knots at the thought of having to talk to all these people. He hated attention being put on him. Now he suddenly had to introduce himself to everyone on his block. He had only traveled a few feet from his house, and he already wanted to throw up. After an hour, things were going relatively well. He had approached about 20 houses, but only had to enter 4 of them. The rest weren't home or didn't answer, and of the 4 that permitted him entry, they each purchased at least a couple of items. And they were all mercifully kind. He had walked to the end of his side of the street, then crossed over to the opposite side. And there, on the corner, he found himself at the most infamous house on Yoke Lane.
2112.
The front yard was cluttered with decorations and pots that contained flowers and trees. At the center of the lawn was a stone angel statue, gazing up, hands aloft like she was asking God for a ride home. The property was framed by a white picket fence that was only about a foot tall. Its paint flaked and a few slats were missing. Owen always wondered what sort of people lived in such a place. So if nothing else, Owen thought, at least he'd finally solved the mystery of the family at 2112 Yoke. The first thing he noticed up close was that all the windows appeared to be glass blocks. He'd seen glass blocks used sparingly, but never for all the windows on a house, as they're difficult to see through. That alone scared him so much he felt the urge to flee, and yet his finger found itself
Ringing the doorbell.
A giant eye was staring him down, grotesquely magnified by a glass block. Owen froze like he was trapped by Medusa. The Gorgon eye retreated. Owen's heartbeat quickened and he started to feel lightheaded. There was the sound of locks and latches, and the door slowly opened. Before his eyes could register the outcome of this, his nose got there first. He was washed over with stale air, hot, stale air, with a hint of urine, obstructed only by the resident herself.
Lord Almighty, look at you! Oh, just look at you! You are adorable! Why, you're just about the most adorable boy I've ever seen in my life! You're like a little cherub! What are you, some kind of little soldier?
Owen explained that he was fundraising for the Scouts, but before he could finish his sentence, her hands were already on his face. She pinched his cheeks. and she pawed the front of his face like it was the back of a cat.
Oh, this is so darling. You really are just so handsome.
He didn't know how to take any of this. He felt deeply uncomfortable with all the attention and physical contact. But he was also confused to hear her describe him as handsome. No one had ever described him as handsome, not even his own mother.
Look at your eyes. You have 2 eyes. They're so wet. Look at your wet little eyes. And your mouth. Your mouth is so moist.
She shoved 2 fingers into his unsuspecting maw and swept them around. Fingernails on his tongue. He could taste the acrylic. Once his lips were free, he desperately tried to get this interaction back on track. He explained again that he was selling items to fundraise for his scout troop.
Oh, how exciting. You want to come in? I mean, you shouldn't talk to strangers, but we're not strangers, are we? You live down the street, don't you? I've seen you. What's your name? Oh, Owen Nosen. That's a handsome name for a strapping lad like you. Hello, Owen Nosen. You can call me Mrs. Schmitz. Come in, come in.
The door closed behind him, and he could hear a clattering of keys and locks being relatched and latches being relocked. Now Owen was ensconced in the miasma of the house. The air crawled up his nostrils and sprawled on his tongue like an elderly dog. He walked past an imposing portrait of President Ronald Reagan. The footsteps echoed. The floors were hardwood, which Owen had never seen in a house before. The living room was dimly lit with faded curtains to frame the glass block windows. The wallpaper was curling and peeling away. On it were more paintings of Reagan. All of the available wall space seemed to feature the president, and most of them weren't standard portraits. In a lot of them he was wearing robes. The woman sat down on a blue chair, which erupted with dust. Owen knelt on the floor before her. It was covered in short, dark hairs. Owen assumed she must own a pet, though none was seen. He placed the cardboard suitcase at her feet and sprang it open.
Stars. Look at all these wonderful items. Did you make all these? Oh my, oh my.
Owen explained he was just given these items to sell, that they were just samples for customers to peruse. If she liked any of them, she could fill out an order form, and he would return a month later to deliver.
You'll come back to me? Really? You promise?
They stared each other down again. Owen clutching a sleeve of eraser shaped like fruit. He finally managed to clarify that he would be obligated to return, to deliver anything she chose to order today. Delivery time took approximately a month. Mrs. Schmidt's eyes darted around the room, like she was seeking advice from Reagan, or Ronald, or the President, or the Gipper. She turned back to Owen, excitedly imploring him to show her his wares. He timidly complied. One by one, the trusty scout showed off the items in his case, and Mrs. Schmitz loved each and every one of them.
A multi-tool with all the tool heads in the handle? A ballpoint pen that writes in 10 different colors? A spinning top that lights up and hums? Ugh.
There was nothing he could show her that wouldn't marvel her. But Owen remained uneasy, trapped alone with this batty woman in this cloistered room, surrounded by a committee of Reagans gazing down on him. The longer he stayed, the more he could recognize distinct sounds. He could hear a consistent hum of machinery, somewhere off in a far room. And every once in a while it would be punctuated by a strange, strangled honking noise.
A little birdcage filled with potpourri. Oh, it smells exquisite. This would be perfect for my husband's bedroom. He can't leave the room, poor thing. Can't fit through the door anymore. Crayons that glow in the dark? That must be some kind of magic. How on earth can crayons glow in the dark? I tell you, my son would love some of these. He honestly would. I should fetch him. Corinthian! He's shy. That's a shame. You like him. You could be brothers. He's about your age. How old are you? 10. Oh, that's a miracle. My little Corinthian is 10. You could be twins. Shame you never met before. I homeschool him, you see, because of his condition. I don't want the other kids picking on him. Tell me, what else do you have for sale?
But he had already shown her everything. It had been almost an hour already, although he didn't realize it in the clockless room. He started packing everything away, getting ready to leave. As he did, he was startled by a camera flash. He looked up at Mrs. Schmitz, who was holding a slim black camera. As she lowered it, her apologetic face was revealed.
You don't mind if I take a picture, do you? To remember you? It was just that I love beautiful children so dearly. I honestly do, and I so rarely get to see them. Well, with Corinthian being homeschooled. Sometimes I go to the park and take pictures of the kids playing. Ugh, that sounds awful, doesn't it? Don't think ill of me. I paint, you see. I'm a professional painter, and I like to study faces and bodies. These are all my paints, by the way. You can see I add children to some of these. There's some huddled around our president. This one is the president. That one, too. I do love painting him, I honestly do.
Mrs. Schmitz showed Owen around the room like a museum tour guide.
I've started painting him as Jesus. Here he is giving the Sermon on the Mount. Here he is walking on water. I'm not saying President Reagan is Jesus reincarnated. That would be absurd. No, but I do think of him like a sort of fourth installment in the Trinity. Like how the Holy Ghost is God and Jesus is God and God is God and President Reagan is God, you see? He resurrected our economy after all. After the Morris of the 70s. You remember back. Oh, no, you wouldn't remember. I'm sure you'll get to it in your history class, right willing.
And the paintings were very good, professional looking at least, if not sensible. One of them seemed to depict Reagan parting the Red Sea, which Owen seemed to recall Jesus not being present for.
Every time the camera flashed, his shoulders stiffened, and the hairs on the nape of his neck
Tried to jump ship.
Do you like my paintings, dearie? Oh, thank you! I'm quite proud of them. I'm blessed that I can make a living with them and afford all this. Only in America. Remember that. It isn't easy living truly free, not in these wicked times. I never compromise. I do what I want. I paint paintings and I sell them myself. I take them around to church festivals, hospitals, flea markets. I even get some repeat business. The President Jesus paintings have really been taken off. I'm tempted to do the crucifixion, but I just don't have the heart, you know? Perhaps after he leaves office. But that won't be for another 5 years at least. Oh, my stars! We've waltzed right into the kitchen! Would you like something to eat? I'd love to fix you something to eat.
It was brown and orange, and the walls had faded floral wallpaper. Nothing seemed particularly unusual to Owen, apart from the window over the sink. It was the only window that was open, and it had a garden hose dangling through from the outside. There was a spigot handle that presumably sat atop a tall pipe in the backyard. It leered through the window like a brass pervert. Owen stood in the kitchen, wary of accepting food from such a strange woman, even though he was starving and all he'd had today was a bowl of oatmeal.
Would you like some chocolate ice cream?
Owen's ears perked up at the words. Wide-eyed and hopeful, he quietly nodded his head. She smiled and pulled a carton out of her freezer. She asked if his parents ever give him ice cream. He explained that his father put him on a diet.
A diet? At your age? You're a grown boy. What next? Plastic surgery. A diet. Phooey. Would you like some powdered chocolate milk?
He wasn't even certain what that was, but it included the word chocolate, so he nodded again. He watched in amazement as she dropped spoonfuls of brown powder into a glass of ordinary milk. Then she swirled the spoon around and the milk turned chocolate. Mrs. Schmitz handed the tall glass of magic to Owen. He took a few sips, and he couldn't believe his own tongue. The milk was so rich, so sweet, he had no idea milk could even be like this. He had tried chocolate milk a couple of times before, like the dinky little cartons in the school cafeteria, but they were nothing like this. Sometimes his taste buds latched on to some powder that was inexplicably still dry, counterbalancing the drink with an exhilarating garnish. And that wasn't even the main course. Mrs. Schmitz placed a bowl of ice cream in front of him, complete with chocolate syrup, a dollop of whipped cream, and a cherry on top. Owen couldn't believe his eyes. He had only ever seen such things in cartoons. It was so beautiful he found himself gazing at it, lost in the moment.
Oh, I couldn't resist! Your cute little face was lit up like a Christmas tree!
Undeterred, Owen dug into the ice cream. It exceeded his expectations. He devoured more and more, carelessly tainting his face with umber ooze. As he ate, his host asked him about his life, about his school, his friends, his parents, his interests. But the scout was discreet. He said his parents were merely okay. He didn't want to mention that they split up, or that he didn't have many friends. He wasn't sure what to say. He assumed she wouldn't like him mentioning the horror films, so he simply stated that he liked watching movies.
Oh, movies are fun. I'm afraid we don't own a television, just the AM radios. No FM in this house. We like to keep it very simple here. We don't even have a phone. I find I can do all my correspondence through the post office. That's the problem. People don't write letters anymore.
Owen never heard of a house that didn't have a television. Mrs. Schmitz registered the boy's confusion, and her plaque-spackled heart melted.
Oh, but I could never say no to you. If you were my son, you'd have ice cream and television every day.
She pinched his cheek and waggled it about. Then she plucked a napkin off the table and gently daubed his mouth. Her fingers slowly swept the sauce around his pursed lips. He had no idea how to react, so he just froze again. But she was really taking her time. She even went in with a second napkin. As he patiently waited for this moment to end, his eyes arced across the kitchen. Owen screamed. An unidentified being was peering around the corner. There was flesh and hair, but neither were where they should be, like a jigsaw puzzle of a person that was never put together correctly. Owen knew it must be an alien. As soon as he started shrieking, the ghostly white ghoul ran at him, waving arms and honking frantically. This only frightened Owen further, who leapt onto his chair like he saw a mouse. Mrs. Schmitz tried to calmly tamp the situation down.
Boys, quiet, both of you! That's better. Owen, I'd like you to meet my son. This is Corinthian.
Corinthian Schmitz had skin as white as whipped cream, no hair atop his pointed pate, and yet he was extremely hairy. Instead of fingernails, he had thick black hair. Same with the toenails on his dirty, exposed feet. Instead of eyeballs, he had more hair, hanging limp and uneven over his pallid chipmunk cheeks. His mouth hung open, revealing what would be teeth, but again, each socket sprouted tufts of dark hair. The hairs billowed out of his mouth when he spoke, like streamers on bicycle handles. Owen was still shaken, but he tried to recover and sit properly in his chair. Instinctively, he held out his hand to shake, but then he wasn't certain if Corinthian could even see. Nonetheless, the boy grabbed his hand and shook it. Owen could feel the coarse fingernail hairs.
Corinthian, this is Owen. He's a salesman. He's selling fancy merchandise door to door. Isn't that exciting? He's the same age as you. Imagine that. You'd be classmates if you didn't make boys and girls scream when they saw you. Owen's in the Scouts. Yeah, isn't that fascinating? He has a little uniform and everything like a little soldier. Wouldn't you just love to be in the Scouts? Imagine that. Imagine if they'd let you in the Scouts looking like that. They never would, though. They never, ever would. But hey, maybe you two could be friends. Owen, you said you don't have any friends. My son is the same way. You could come over and play with him. Would you like that?
Before Owen could answer, Corinthian started wailing again, his tooth shanks reaching out like tendrils. His mother patted his pointy head and took him to the sink.
Yes, I know.
Corinthian was wearing a yellow backpack with something sticking out of it. Mrs. Schmitz took the lid off. It was a stainless steel coffee urn. She turned on the spigot through the tiny window to refill his backpack urn.
He doesn't produce much moisture, so he has to drink a lot of water.
Owen looked at her son, who was drinking from a tube that was attached to the bottom of the urn. When she finished refilling him, his mother took a bag out of the fridge and handed it to him.
Now go change your father's IV bag. Go on! Scoot!
The unearthly child turned and shuffled his hairy toes out of the kitchen.
My poor sweet boy, it's a challenge, it really is. The baths, the water bills, the dental dandruff. I wish I could take him places, mingle with the other moms, show off my boy. But no, gotta keep him inside and alone, and he doesn't like that. Keeps hurling himself at the windows and doors. Had to have block windows installed. Haven't had to replace any glass since, although it gets rather stuffy. But you know, we all have to make sacrifices. That's God's way. I don't even mind where his hair is myself. I just wish it at least matched mine. That would be so darling if we had matching red hair, even if it was coming out of his eyes. He won't let me dye it, though. He doesn't even like me cutting it. I'm quite good, though. I do my own perms, you know. I have my own little salon up in the attic. Do you like my hair?
Owen nodded politely. Mrs. Schmitz beamed back a grin.
Ah, you're so sweet. Ugh. Tell you what, I'll buy your fabulous prizes for my son. We won't even tell him. It'll be a surprise. A Christmas surprise for my dear boy.
Owen got up from his chair to retrieve a blank order sheet. Mrs. Schmitz eagerly filled it out, placing a 1 next to every single item listed. Owen was astonished, asking if she understood what she was doing, but she stated aloud that she intended to buy 1 of everything. He added up her tally on his pocket calculator, and she quickly cut him a check. His biggest sale was in the bag, and he got some ice cream and chocolate milk to boot. And all he had to do was put up with the strangest family he had ever met. He thanked Mrs. Schmitz for her kindness and generosity, but he also headed toward the living room door, insisting he must move on to more houses.
Oh, must you go? Oh, my dear cherub. Well, I guess you must obey your scoutmasters. But you'll be back next month to deliver everything, right? Oh, excellent. And you know, feel free to stop by any time. You can play with Corinthian, or you and I can just chat. I always have lots of ice cream. Yum, yum.
Owen grinned and nodded as he hoisted his cardboard suitcase. Before he could leave, he spotted Corinthian at the end of the hall.
Oh, Corinthian, honey. Come here, dear. Come do mommy a favor.
Suddenly, Owen found himself posing for one last photograph.
Owen got through the day with a lot of sales, and yet he felt no sense of accomplishment. If anything, he felt humiliated, and he couldn't help thinking about that strange boy, Corinthian, trapped in that house, trapped in that body. It was kind of relatable. He drifted off to sleep, considering Mrs. Schmitz's offer to visit. 1 month later, all the packages arrived, and Owen was obligated to deliver them. They were all organized into brown paper bags with the original order sheets stapled to them. In addition to Owen's other orders, he was given a complete Knute Grace cardboard suitcase. It had Mrs. Schmitz's order stapled to it. Since she ticked off one of everything, the company just pulled a full case off the shelf instead of packing a bag. He followed the same route down his side of the street, crossing over to the opposite corner. He kept peering at
2112 yoke.
his stomach filled with butterflies, until once again he stood at the door with a cardboard suitcase. He wondered if he should just leave it there and split. On the other hand, if he went inside, he might be offered some chocolate treats. Finally, the door swung open, and he was hit with that familiar stale air. Mrs. Schmitz stood in the doorway, wearing an apron with red stains on it, and cleaning something similar off her hands with a towel. She seemed overjoyed to see him. Owen was relieved he hadn't offended her with his absence. Although now that he was back, the eeriness he felt a month ago was starting to resurface. The house smelled, even worse than last time. Also making him uneasy was the sound of the door being re-locked behind him. He turned around to see her holding a big round keychain, like a jailer might carry. She attached it to a thin belt around her waist. Mrs. Schmitz ushered the scout into the living room. He couldn't help but notice that the tables now had framed photographs on them. He took a closer look.
Oh my heavens, it's all here! The dinosaur stencil kit, the squeegee with the soap dispenser and the handle, the Ziggy wrapping paper! Oh my goodness, I don't even remember this keychain. I'm gonna put this on my key ring right now. Oh, and I have something for you. Wait right there.
Owen was left alone in the musty living room.
Surprise!
Owen swiveled around. He was greeted by Mrs. Schmitz, holding out a big brown glass of chocolate milk. He found himself accepting the cold offering, once again brimming with bubbles and inexplicably dry powder. Although this time there was a bitter aftertaste.
Did you deliver all your packages yet?
Owen shook his head. He gulped his drink and winced.
Nothing wrong with taking a quick break to refresh yourself. I won't tell anyone. And if you're not feeling well, I could deliver the rest for you. How's that sound?
Owen finished his milk. It wasn't great, and he didn't understand what this woman was talking about.
Would you like anything to eat, Corinthian?
The confused scout squinted. He looked behind him. His eyes scanned the room. Corinthian wasn't around.
I'm talking to you, my son.
Would you like some delicious ice cream, Corinthian?
Whipped cream in it.
Cherry on top?
He tried correcting her. He told her his name was Owen Nosen, that he wasn't her son.
Nonsense, Corinthian. Of course you're my son. Look at all these pictures of you. Look at this one of you and me.
He explained that her real son took that photo. He insisted that he doesn't live in this house, and now that he has delivered her items, he had to leave to continue his route. Mrs. Schmitz didn't seem to be listening anymore. She approached him, rustling her fingers through his dark hair.
You would look so much better with shorter hair.
And wouldn't it be, darling, if it matched mine? How about that, Corinthian?
Would you like to go up in the attic so I can cut your hair and dye it red?
Owen vigorously shook his terrified mop. He shook it so hard he got dizzy. His knees gave out. He collapsed to the hardwood floor.
I thought you might say that,
Corinthian.
Oh, why must I always have to drug my own children?
Owen looked helplessly up at Mrs. Schmitz, but she was getting blurry as his field of vision was shrinking around her. As his eyes closed, he could feel her lifting him off the floor. Owen awoke. He was in a cluttered attic, lit only by a single hanging light bulb. He was tied to a chair, a hair salon chair by the look of it. Nearby was a table filled with mirrors, scissors, shavers, and other such barber equipment. There were also bottles of red hair dye. Owen realized this was a kidnapping. He was being kidnapped. Mrs. Schmitz drugged him, tied him to a chair so she can change his hair and identity and keep him forever. This, he determined,
Was bad.
Owen didn't know where his captor was, but he assumed he didn't have very long before she'd be back. He had to escape as soon as possible. Luckily, she wasn't very good at tying people up, and Owen was able to slip out of her restraints. Now all he had to do was get out of the house. He quietly crept down the stairs, peeking around every corner. At the bottom was the hallway of presidential portraits. He tiptoed through it to the living room. The front door was still locked, and none of the glass block windows had openings. So he looked around for a phone. If he could just call home, he'd be saved. But he couldn't find a phone either. There was a distant memory of Mrs. Schmidt saying she didn't have a phone. If so, he really was trapped. But he was a scout. Surely a scout could get out of any situation.
Then he remembered that he wasn't a very good scout.
He wasn't even a willing scout. He just wore a scout uniform because he was told to. He snuck back down the hall and peeked into the kitchen. No phone that he could see. There was a back door, but it had several locks too. There was that small window over the sink for the hose. He couldn't fit through, but perhaps he could use it to shout for help. As he considered this, he heard Mrs. Schmitz doing laundry in a room adjacent to the kitchen. He recoiled in terror. She was still here.
She was close.
Okay, while that runs, I'll pop upstairs and do my boy's hair.
She was coming.
Owen darted into the first doorway he could find. He found himself in a blue bedroom. It looked like a boy's room apart from the Reagan paintings. This was likely Corinthian's room. His little black hairs were everywhere. But he was surprised to find a television. A month ago, Mrs. Schmitz claimed she didn't have one. But then he noticed it wasn't even plugged in yet. This new TV wasn't for her son. It was for him. So if this was his bedroom now, then what happened to
Corinthian!
He carefully left his inherited bedroom and tried the next door along. He was immediately ambushed by the odor. This was the source of the hint of urine that permeated the house. The room was like a hospital. The walls were white, the floor tiles were white. At the center of the room was one patient. He was unconscious, hooked up to machines that beeped and hummed. The man was laid out on a hospital bed, but strangely it was quite low to the ground, and the bed was propped so he was sitting up, slumped forward. Seemed like an unusual position for a patient to sit in. Cautiously, Owen approached. This must be the mysterious Mr. Schmitz. He looked much older than his wife. She said very little about him, something about him being unable to fit through the doorway. He was large, but he didn't look that fat. Although as Owen walked around to the other side of the bed, he saw what she meant and why he was
So low to the ground.
Mr. Schmitz had a growth on the side of his body, a tumor so large a normal doorway would indeed prove a challenge. It appeared to emanate from the left side of his head, but it grew into his shoulder as well, causing his arm to wither as it was subsumed by the sinewy scarlet glob. The cancer was so large it just sat on the ground. There were watery red fluids surrounding it on the white tiled floor. Owen wasn't sure why. Perhaps it leaked. Maybe it needed to be squeezed from time to time.
Corinthian! Where are you? Are you in your father's room?
She was headed right for him, for this very room. He instinctively felt the need to hide. There was a closet, but it was filled with medical supplies, and it didn't even have any doors. There wasn't enough room under the low bed. There was only one other large object in the room. He couldn't. Could he? She called out again, furiously. Owen dropped to the floor and clutched the moist, carbunkled sack. Heaving it upward, he slipped his feet beneath. It was heavy, but he was determined. He found it faintly warm. Not as warm as a person should be, but not as cold as a corpse might be. It felt craggy, like a toad that had been in a house fire, but it was damp enough to ease his insertion. Soon Owen was completely concealed beneath Mr. Schmitz's enormous brain tumor, just as Mrs. Schmitz opened the door.
Corinthian!
Are you hiding in here?
The panicked scout lay supine as the crippling weight of the malignancy pushed down on his young lungs. He desperately tried to stifle his wheezing. There was a space under the tumor he could peek out from, although his view was upside down. But it was better than looking up at the scarred battlefield of warts, veins, and lesions.
Son, come out if you can hear me!
Owen was quickly running out of air. He was getting woozy from the stench of necrotic flesh, but he was able to breathe a sigh of relief as he watched the shoes angrily stomp off into the hallway. Owen scrabbled to pull himself out from under, gasping for air and wiping the secretions from his face. It turned out to be the perfect spot. No normal person would ever think to use a tumor to hide someone, he thought. But then horror fans like himself weren't normal people. But as he sat on the floor panting, the lump moved. He was scared at first, but then he figured it was probably just the insides shifting around because of how he had disturbed them. But then it moved again, a bulge on the side. It swept to the left. This can't be right, he thought. Ever so slowly, Owen reached out his hand. Something was alive in there. This wasn't just horror anymore. This was science fiction. The Schmitzes must be aliens. This is some kind of pod people situation. Bravely, he got up close to inspect it again. He put his ear near the tumor. There was a noise, a faint gurgling from within. Something wasn't natural about this. He looked it up and down, and for the first time he noticed the stitches. The stitches were thick, soft, nothing at all like the wiry stitches of a hospital scar. He rubbed the end between his fingers. It was yarn, like knitting yarn. It must have been recent. It hadn't grown together yet. In fact, it was open, seeping, and festering. He poked at it with a pen and it started to come loose. The gaping gash released a stagnant soup of noxious autumnal juices. Owen had never seen anything like it. As he stared, he spotted something moving. Some kind of creature was wriggling about in there. A worm, maybe. And then another. 2 worms. Owen was getting nauseous now. The worms were escaping. He could see more of them, fleeing the wound. No, they weren't worms. They were fingers. A hand. 2 hands, ripping the skin asunder. The creature wrenched and pulled its way out of the tumor, drenched in crimson viscera. Cancerous entrails oozed out onto the floor. Mrs. Schmitz's missing son, or at least someone that looked very much like him. Owen wasn't quite sure if he was some kind of clone. He thought there might be a series of Corinthians. Maybe he just witnessed the birth of the newest iteration. Or maybe it was the same one. Maybe that's just where he sleeps. Owen took a chance. He quietly called to the boy. He asked if he remembered him. Owen Nosen, the scout that came to their house a month ago. The Corinthian screeched and trudged toward him. Owen kept pace, stepping in reverse until he slipped in a lymphatic puddle and fell flat on his back. The bloody hatchling pounced on him, hands clutching at his throat, squeezing the scouting life out of him. His eyes bulged and his face turned as blue as his uniform. He could feel the thick tips of hair draping out of Corinthian's face, menacingly tickling his azure skin. Owen scanned the room for useful items. Then he spotted something familiar behind the tumor. A flash of yellow. It was Corinthian's backpack, with his silver urn retrofitted with a drinking tube. Owen inched closer,
Reaching toward the strap.
Corinthian was knocked out. Owen scrambled to his feet, but he couldn't help feeling bad. He had never physically harmed anyone before. He might have killed the kid, but he had no time to verify. He needed to get home before he got attacked or drugged or who knows what. He checked the hallway. It was clear. He snuck out. It began to dawn on him that he was rapidly running out of doors, and none of them led to a telephone or an exit. He spotted another door. Opening it revealed wooden stairs
that descended into darkness.
I can do this all day, son. There's no way out of this house. The longer you play around, the angrier I'm gonna get.
Whether brave or foolish, he decided to take his chances in the basement. He flicked a switch and a feeble glow sparked downstairs. Owen quietly crept toward it. The old wooden steps creaked beneath his feet. He looked around for an outside cellar door or any other escape from this madhouse. Otherwise, he was stuck. He wondered if he should go on the offensive, as his dad would say. Maybe he should attack Mrs. Schmitz. Knock her out and steal her keys. Could he do that? He did just knock out her child, but he didn't enjoy it. Owen shuddered. There must be a phone in this house, he thought. At least one for emergencies. He hoped it could be in this basement somewhere. He searched around wherever he could. There were lots of boxes, often from medical supply companies. He walked closer to the single light bulb dangling from the ceiling. A good spot for a phone, he figured. On closer inspection, the lit alcove appeared to be Mrs. Schmitz's art studio. The chromatically splattered table was filled with paint supplies. Above it was an old radio without an FM option, but there was no phone to be seen. Next to the table stood an easel with an in-progress painting. It was the Nativity. Ronald Reagan was no longer the savior. Instead, he and his wife Nancy were Joseph and Mary. The first couple looked lovingly down at their newborn Messiah. She was deifying him, and she was getting his face just right using reference photos of Owen pinned to the easel. The most prominent was one he didn't recognize. He stepped forward and peered at it. That was him, all right, but his eyes were closed, like in the painting. He was asleep at night in his own bed.
She was in his house.
She was in his bedroom, taking pictures of him as he slept. His spine turned
Cold as ice cream.
He knew he had to get out of here immediately, even if he had to
Kill to do it. Corinthian was alive.
And now they were trapped in an unlit basement together. Owen considered the situation. Perhaps he had the upper hand on his counterpart. The kid didn't seem terribly cunning. An average scout like himself should be able to keep one step ahead of this adversary. It took Owen a moment to realize how these glowing words were manifesting on the wall across from him. They were written in crayon. Glow in the dark crayon. The crayon he had just delivered. Perhaps Corinthian was more cunning and able than Owen had originally assumed. Plus, he had the home field advantage.
And the benefit of vengeful fury.
Boys, are you two playing down there?
The real Corinthian relented. Dropping his wrathful fists, he staggered forward.
Oh, my poor sweet baby! I'm so sorry Mommy drugged you and sewed you into your father's tumor. I really am. I just wasn't happy with how you turned out. I'm an artist, a perfectionist. I wanted the perfect suburban life with the perfect little boy I could dote on. But instead, I got you. I like you, of course, but you're just not what I was hoping for. And then that beautiful little cherub came to my door, and he was everything I ever wanted in a son. There he was, in my home, and he was the same age as you. It just seemed so perfect. A gift from the Lord, and I discovered his own mother rejected him. I thought he'd appreciate having a new mommy. So I figured I could just swap you two out. No one knows what you look like, so I didn't think anyone would notice. All I had to do was get rid of you. I only shoved you inside that tumor because I thought no one would ever think to look there. I thought for sure you'd die in there, but you didn't. You got out. All on your own. I'm so proud of you. But I'm afraid I'm still gonna have to kill you. I'm sorry, but Mommy's gone too far this time. I have to finish what I started.
As she spoke these last words, her head turned.
You! Get away from me! No!
Mrs. Schmitz recoiled in terror, slipping on the blood-stained ground and tumbling down the rickety wooden steps. She hit the concrete floor hard, breaking her nose and teeth, shattering her pelvis and snapping her limbs. She lay in a crumpled heap at the hirsute feet of her jilted son. Corinthian looked down at his mangled mother. She was the only conscious person he had ever known. Looking up, he saw watery blood trickling down the steps, pushed to the edge by the misshapen figure in the doorway.
What the hell is going on around here?
Mr. Schmitz was awake. He found himself in a room he didn't recognize, in a house he didn't know he owned, and there was a growth on the side of his head that was as big as he was. Searching for answers, he pulled off his tubes and dragged himself out of bed. Getting through the doorway proved difficult. As he pushed through the passage, his enormous cyst ejected several pounds of malignant giblets. In excruciating pain, Mr. Schmitz crawled down the hallway where he saw a strange woman casually discussing the drugging and murdering of her own son. And shocked by the sight of the man clambering toward her, she fell. But she lived.
Dagner, is that really you?
Yeah, my name is Dabner Schmitz. Who the hell are you?
It's not important. I'm in so much pain, I need to go to the hospital. There's no phone in the house. Go tell Mrs. Stokowski next door. Tell her I need an ambulance.
I just woke up in a strange place. There's a strange woman talking about killing children. What's going on? Who are you?
I'm your wife.
My wife? No, you're not. I've never been married. I've never even met you.
Yes, you have. Remember at the hospital I showed you my paintings?
Paintings? There was a woman with... She'd go to all the hospital rooms trying to sell her paintings of President Nixon. We got to talking about politics. She came back a few times. What was her name? Ornelia. Yeah, that's it. Ornelia Smut.
Mrs. Schmitz winced at the sound of her maiden name. And then again because her legs were broken.
Yes, that's me.
Oh, Ornelia? You can't be. You look nothing like her. You're old enough to be her mother.
Your brain tumor worse than you slipped into a coma. You've been asleep for a long time.
Coma? For how long?
Well, let's see. It's 1983 now.
1983? That's 12 years.
The fractured vertebrae in Mrs. Schmitz's neck grated together as she nodded.
Oh, well, my God. Did Nixon get a second term?
Well, yes and no. But Ronald Reagan is president now.
Ronald Reagan? That explains all the paintings. Is this your house?
It's our house, dear. We're married.
I never married you.
Yes, you did. Right after you slipped into your coma.
After? You can't do that. Who the hell would ever agree to officiate a comatose wedding?
The priest owed me a favor. Because I kept a secret for him.
12 years. But why take me out of the hospital? Why am I in this house? My pension. You've been collecting my pension.
I've been investing it, dear. I've made quite a hefty profit on the stock market. I built a life for us here. We've made it work. Now, please, I'm in a lot of pain. Call an ambulance.
You're insane. I'm calling the police.
No! No, don't call the police. Please, we're a family. Our son needs a mother.
Son? What the hell do you mean? Our son?
Corinthian stepped over his mother and back into the light.
His name is Corinthian. He's 10 years old.
10? How? If I was in a coma... Son? What on God's green earth?
They stood before each other, father and son. The boy had never seen his dad awake. The dad had never seen his boy at all. Corinthian placed his little arms around his daddy. A moment later, he was hugged back. It was his first hug. Owen watched on, unsure what to do. He didn't want to interrupt. This was clearly an intimate family matter. And he wasn't the...
This is all your fault! I'll kill you!
Once again, Owen was being choked to death. But these larger hands were more formidable. Her thumbs dug in, acrylic nails cutting his flesh. He could feel the opposing walls of his larynx connecting. His eyes fluttered as the pain gave way to oblivion. The Knute gray suitcase of opportunities flew through the air and crashed into the side of Mrs. Schmitz's skull. She was thrown to the concrete floor, knocking her out. The boys stared each other down. Owen was terrified. He visibly flinched as Corinthian approached. Owen's quivering little hand reached out and accepted the keys. He wasn't sure what he should do in return. He offered to call an ambulance, but Corinthian shook his head and indicated he should leave. The stalwart scout obeyed, walking back up the steps, being careful not to slip in the trickling blood. As he ascended, he heard sounds behind him, terrible sounds. He resisted the urge to turn around. Whatever Corinthian was doing, it was between him and his mother. Meanwhile, the father was still sprawled out at the top of the stairs, eyes too weak to open, head too weak to lift.
Is that you, son? I don't feel so well.
Owen didn't answer. He just pushed him, sliding him backward in order to squeeze past. He unlocked the front door and dropped the keys where he stood. Before he left, he turned back to take one last look down the hallway. He saw Mr. Schmitz, unconscious, sitting in a pool of blood. He also saw Corinthian, who looked back at Owen. They maintained eye contact as the hairy fingers widened the wound and the son gently reinterred himself within his father's tumor. The boys watched each other as Owen pulled the door shut
And Corinthian pulled the cancer shut.
You know, I think we're all just looking for a big tumor to crawl inside of, like a big cancerous womb. Oh my god, our guest actors! Lucy Smith smashing a ridiculous performance. She's an amazing voice actor, singer, model. She's worked all over the kids' end of the entertainment industry and beyond. You could check out her website and her Instagram. She's also working on a new podcast called Chronicles, showcasing various voice actors. And of course, we have the great Jim Fronk in a small but succulent role as a cancer with a man growing out of it. He's also a very accomplished voice actor. You can check out his website and his Instagram. And he also has a podcast showcasing voice actors. It's called The Microphone Insider. It airs live every Thursday on its website or its YouTube channel. I'm also a person doing things. You can check out my website and my Instagram. And I have a show. In fact, you're watching it right now. New episodes come out whenever I can be bothered. Our next story is called Master of Maggots. And it's about a bunch of animals acting like a bunch of animals. Just like how people do.